This is a request for seller repairs or credits. This is a form that the buyer will deliver to the seller typically at the end of the inspection period. So the buyer, using the inspection period, has performed all investigations to a point where they feel comfortable with their knowledge of the condition of the property. And that usually includes a physical home inspection by an inspector. That includes a termite inspection and could include multiple visits from the buyer themselves. And so what they're going to do is they're going to ask the seller for repairs or credits. And it doesn't have to take place, but it typically takes place customarily in a transaction, unless the home is as is. And what the buyer is going to do is write the property address here, or I should say buyer's agent. And the buyer and seller will be identified here. And then the request will be made. And these are line items in section 1. So the buyer could write something like seller to repair such and such appliance or seller to replace such and such. But this is where requests about a modification of the condition is made. Now, you can check this box here and create an addendum and use the addendum form, or you can create just a Word document if you want. It can just be a blank page that has a date on the top and it's a line item, and you identify it by checking this box and then putting the date that matches the date on the supplemental form if you have a huge laundry list that you want to deliver to the seller. But this is plenty of room here to do line items, and you can numerically itemize it 1, 2, 3, or something like 1, and then you can have a bunch of text. Let's say we put the text here. So I'll put a bunch of letters in. We'll put 2 just like that. And you can itemize it like that. You can do A, you can do B. You get the idea. Whatever looks clean and organized. Now, down here, you can check the box for Section 1 termite repairs by the company, likely the company that performed the inspection, and the date of the inspection. And so you'll put termite here if you want termite repairs done. And then you'll put a credit here. And now keep in mind, these are not or. There's no or between each 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are just an organization of the request. They're categories of the request. So you have kind of line items here that can be whatever text is drafted by the agent. Termite here. If both these are filled out, then they're both requested. If you want to add a credit on top of these repairs, then you'll put the dollar figure amount right here. And if you want to do a reduction, you can put that figure amount right here. And you'll just change the sales price and write the new sales price here. Now, of course, you probably wouldn't do all of them because it doesn't make sense to ask for a credit and a reduction. You would ask for one or the other typically, or you typically ask for repairs or a credit. And you can even write these repairs or a credit. I mean, you can use this space to write that here. But by nature, it's not one or the other. It's everything that's filled out here is combined as one request. That's how the form works. These are just categories to help you clearly define what requests you're making. So you'll put your written request here. Again, you can attach a supplemental document if this isn't enough space. You'll put your termite request here, and if you're asking for a credit, you'd put that here. Now you could leave this blank and just put a credit, or leave all this blank and just put a sales price reduction. However you want to do it, it's up to you how you want to customize it. You'll print and you'll sign as the buyer. The seller is going to see this and they're going to either agree, or they're going to agree with a condition, or they're going to counter it. And they're going to say, no, we either reject it all, or we're going to reject this, but we're going to counter it. So this is number 2 here is an outright no from the seller. Number 3 is not closing the door on negotiation. It's opening the door for a new document, which is essentially a counter offer to the request for repairs. It's called the counter to request or seller's repairs or credits. And that is where you're going to have the property address. Same thing, identifying the parties. Now you're going to check this box as the same idea as the same categories we have in the first document, where the seller is going to check a box here, and they're going to write that they're agreeing to everything except, and they're going to remove certain items. So maybe there's only one item on the request. Well, the seller, it's implied that they're agreeing to all those items except, and then they're removing the one that they don't agree to. Or they'll just say, I got your huge list of repairs. I don't want to do it. Let me just credit you money. Or they're going to say, I got your request. I don't want the hassle. I'll just give you a reduction off the sales price. They'll put it here. Or they can check the box other and write whatever they want. They can just make up whatever they want and put it right there. And then they can put a little pressure on the buyer and say that, here, I'm agreeing to this, but you need to agree to remove either all contingencies or just the inspection contingency. And then the seller will sign here and send it back to the buyer. Now it's the buyer's turn to either accept everything, rescind their original buyer counteroffer buyer request number 1, and create a new one, which would be version 2, which you'd put right there. Or the buyer can flat out just reject it and close the door and walk away. So now let's say if the buyer does rescind and wants to do a new counter, the buyer would check box number 2, go back here, and now the buyer would redraft a new one, and it would be called number 2. So there's a numerical sequence. This is how requests are made. And requests are, again, addressed at the end of the inspection period, and it's all negotiable. A request is really the same as just imagine if you mixed a counter or an addendum and then a counter offer. That's all that's happening. You're amending the contract and you're countering it out when the seller responds. That's it. But it's easily identifiable as a request for repair or request for seller repair or credit in the middle of the transaction. And it's a way to address what's outstanding after the inspection period has done. That's why termite is here and not at the beginning on the purchase contract, because it's important to get that inspection back to know really what needs to be negotiated. Same with the property inspection. Both parties should be informed, and the buyer should deliver their any inspection documents they have to the seller. So both parties are properly informed as to what they're dealing with in terms of negotiating any repairs or credits.